Hello, everyone. Happy New Year, and welcome back to our Wednesday workshops at 1 with NuView Trust Company. My name is Brian Martinez. I am the manager for the Syndication Solutions Department. The next series, we're going to be covering a variety of real estate investments. Today, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the self-directed IRAs that are eligible to be used to invest into real estate deals. Not only deals, but how you can hold real estate personally, and what's a passive way of investing in real estate or what's a more active way of investing in real estate. So it's going to be a really awesome class. If you're new to self-directed IRAs, don't worry about it because I'm going to give you a lot of the basics to get us started. All right, so this series is the realistic real estate for 2023 market. As you know, with real estate right now, interest rates are super high, but that shouldn't discourage you from still investing. There's lots of ways that it could be a fruitful investment, and there's always the opportunity to refi if you do have any leverage or a loan involved in that real estate deal. But before we get started, just a disclaimer. So NuView, we are a self-directed IRA custodian. We do not provide legal, tax advice, or financial investment advice. We always suggest you speak with a qualified financial advisor, CPA, or whoever you need to speak with before you make any investment. It's always ultimately up to you as the owner of that self-directed IRA account to do your own due diligence. So NuView, we've been in business since 2003. We're actually going to be having our 20-year anniversary this year. So we are looking forward to that. And we got some great announcements for 2023 as well. A few other things, we have over 12,000 clients and we custody 2.2 billion under client assets. So yeah, we're a pretty big player when it comes to self-directed IRAs. And what is a self-directed IRA? So it's just like any other IRA, honestly. The only difference is you have your companies like Fidelity or Charles Schwab or Merrill Lynch. Those companies limit your investing to the stock market, stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. A true self-directed IRA, what we do here at NuView, allows you to diversify into alternative investments, real estate being one of those. A few other things would be anything that's not publicly traded, private companies, mortgage notes, tax liens, cryptocurrency. So any of those types of investments you can do in a self-directed IRA. The only things you cannot invest in a self-directed IRA are collectibles and life insurance. So why would you want to self-direct an IRA? Well, like any other IRA, there is some tax savings that comes along with that. So depending what type of IRA that you are using, it's either your investment's going to grow either tax deferred or tax free. I'm going to break down the different IRAs and how they're taxed in just a second. You're also investing in what you know best. You might already be investing in real estate, but if you are and you're doing it with cash or leverage, well, you're paying taxes on that. But if you did it in an IRA, potentially it could be tax free or tax deferred for you. So you're investing in what you already know. It's a lot easier to understand how real estate works. You can easily calculate what your expected, rental income is going to look like at the end of the year versus putting your money in, something in the stock market that's unpredictable. And, 2022 is great testimony to how bad the stock market can be, how volatile and how easy it is to lose a lot of money in one day. I had a ton of people calling me in 2022. They were devastated. They lost money within a few short days and they're hoping to hopefully make that money back. But a lot of them I had spoken to in, months prior, even years prior, and they said, I should have opened my account. I should have went with you. I should have self-directed my IRA. So don't be one of those people. Start self-directing as soon as you can. So what can you invest in? You can invest into anything that's considered a private entity. It's not publicly traded. So private companies. Could be things like a joint venture, whether you're partnering with other people, that would be an LLC may be created, and your IRA maybe would be one of those investors. Limited partnerships, any LLCs, trusts, syndications, that would all fall under private entities. And then when it comes to real estate, there's so many different things in real estate you can do. I mean, could get pretty creative. And we got some cool speakers coming in to talk about some creative ways of investing in real estate you might not have heard about. But you can have a rental property where just like you're a landlord, and the only difference is the title on the property is held under the IRA's name, not you personally, which means that your renters are paying the IRA back. Then you have your Airbnb, so short-term rentals or VRBOs. We've seen clients do that. Foreclosures, tax liens, fix and flips, any real estate option contracts, condos. There's so many different things, even offshore real estate. You could invest in real estate almost anywhere in the world as long as that country allows it, and you could do it in an IRA. And then another thing clients like to do is private lending. So that would be like a mortgage note that would fall under real estate in a way because you're lending your money. You're like a private lender, but your IRA holds the note to the property. So that person's paying, whoever the borrower is or tenant is paying that mortgage note off until they pay it completely off, just like they would borrow from a bank, but they're borrowing from your IRA. So you're getting the interest. Now, what happens if that borrower doesn't pay you back, just like a bank? You can foreclose on the property. So instead of owning the note at that point, now you own the property. That is a secured note. If it's an unsecured note, well, you can charge higher interest, but it is not secured by real estate. And where can you find secured notes or unsecured notes? Well, there's a lot of websites. I would Google it. And then you can figure out, where you think, what a good note looks like to you, if it's performing or non-performing, and then decide, how you want to buy it, how many you want to buy. You can even buy a pool of notes. So there's a lot of really cool things with notes. We're not going to talk too much about notes this time. We're going to talk about some restrictions first. So there are some restrictions with your IRAs. There are people that are restricted that you cannot do business with. These are called disqualified parties. So whatever investment you're making, the people that must stay out of that cash flow from your IRA would be the IRA owner, their spouse, their parents, grandparents, their children, and their grandchildren. So those are all disqualified parties, whether the money's going directly to them or a business that they might own or own majority of, they are disqualified. You can't do business with them. You also can't do business with any fiduciary. So anyone that's giving you financial advice, you can't do business with them. And then there's some transactions that are prohibited as well. So same thing, like I said, if it's a company owned by those disqualified parties, if they own 50% or more, if they're a decision maker or they're on the board of directors for that company, you can't invest in those typically. It's got to be a passive investment. And then the other investment restrictions I mentioned before would be collectibles and life insurance. So this breaks down exactly who the disqualified people are. And the best way to explain it are your ascendants and your descendants, and then any entities that they own. So that's the best way to explain it. And anyone you list as a beneficiary as well on your IRA would also be considered a disqualified party. All right. So what does it mean by restricted transactions? So those parties, you cannot buy, sell, trade, or loan or extend services to those parties. So when it comes to real estate, and I'm going to give some examples. Say I bought a piece of real estate. My son wanted to rent that property and my IRA owns it. That is not allowed because it's not a passive investment at that point. And now I am extending a service to a disqualified party. My mother wanted to rent it. She cannot be a renter. Another thing, when you have a property, say it needs work done, any sweat equity. Well, those disqualified parties, they are not allowed to put the sweat equity in the property. It's got to be done by a third party. Another thing is, as there is expenses on the property, the IRA is responsible for those expenses 100%. If the IRA owns the property 100%, and then all the income you generate from that property, the profit you make goes back to the IRA 100%. All right, so we talked about the life insurance and collectibles, and what are the options for real estate? So like I mentioned in the past slide, you have your rentals, Airbnbs, foreclosures. What we are going to specifically be talking about in the future classes, though, it's going to be investing in some other people's deals, specifically like distressed real estate, self-storage, car washes, and a few other cool things. But what I want to talk about today is how does it work? Okay, so there's a few things you want to consider when you're investing in real estate. You've probably heard this before if you're a real estate investor, but location, number one, are you going to be in a prime location next to maybe like a college, university, or a huge, like maybe Amazon that just built, or a Walmart corporate office where that there are going to be consistent renters in that area. So location, something they will preach to you no matter where you go to learn about real estate investing. Those basics that you learn, they still apply to an IRA. It's still an investment. So you want to do your due diligence on that. Can you negotiate the price? With the interest rates right now, maybe there are ways you can take over somebody else's lease and take over that property and take over where they left off, whatever the interest rate was that they got. Maybe they're not able to make ends meet, or they need to relocate, or they're about to be foreclosed on. There's some option for negotiation. So you do have the opportunity to get creative. It doesn't change the way you invest in real estate. It's just a different way of investing because of the obstacles with the high interest rates. Or are you willing to, if you're even taking a loan out, do you need a loan? If you do need a loan, it has to be a non-recourse loan. What do those interest rates look like? So there are ways of taking a mortgage out with an IRA. It's not a traditional mortgage. It's called a non-recourse loan. Let's see what else. Yeah, what financing do you plan to use? And making sure that you keep those disqualified parties, they can't rent it. You can't put the sweat equity in it. Yeah, it could save your IRA money, but there are consequences. So you don't want to do that. Let's see what else. You got consistent cash flow when it comes to single or multifamily. That's the perks of it. So you always have money coming in. You're going to get long-term appreciation. And it is not a passive investment. This is more of an active investment. You are the landlord. So anytime there are tenants involved, either you hire a property manager or you are the property manager. So if there are tenants and toilets, things that need to be fixed, well, you're the one that your phone's going to be the one ringing, but the IRA is going to pay for those expenses. And it's up to you to find that disqualified party that, so that they can come out and do the work. A third party plumber, electrician, or whoever, roofer, needs to do the work on the property. So this is more of an active investment if you're investing in real estate and you want to own a rental property. All right. Short-term rentals, same thing. You can hire a property manager if you want to. Location's really important as well when it comes to short-term rentals. I have a short-term rental myself. It's on the beach. That's, to me, prime real estate, because where I have my rental property, there are people consistently in that city that are traveling. There's always concerts going on. Daytona 500, that's going to give you away where my property is. But there's always something going on there that's keeping my property rented short term. But I'm making profit off it. So yeah, it has an HOA fee, and I have to take that in consideration. But as long as I rent it out so many days a month, I know I'm going to make enough profit to cover the HOA fee. So you got to take that in consideration, of course. But yeah, anything close to like sports stadiums, maybe, make sure that you check the zoning laws, because there are certain counties that don't allow you to hold short-term rentals. So you got to be careful with that. You don't want to get a high tax bill later on because you didn't, you started doing Airbnb and you didn't know better. So do your research, of course. Do you want to be the one to go there and clean it? Well, guess what? If it's owning an IRA, you can't be the one to clean the Airbnb. You got to hire a third party to come in and do all the cleaning. Or like I said, you hire a property management team that can take care of all of that for you, and all that rental income just comes right back into the IRA. It's going to grow tax-free or tax-deferred for you. If you're planning to use financing, remember you can only use what's called a non-recourse loan. And, all the same rules apply to this Airbnb. The thing clients that have short-term rentals always ask is, can I use the property? You cannot use the property. It is completely prohibited for you to rent that property or use it, even though it's probably beautiful and it's right there on the beach, and it's just 1 or 2 days a year that you want to go on vacation there. Fortunately, you cannot do that. That would make it prohibited. So as much as you're tempted, do not do that. A few other things is, because it is a short-term rental, you are most likely going to be subject to what's called UDFI tax, which is an unrelated debt finance income tax. If you're using any loans, you're going to pay that tax. If you're running a business, then it's going to be UBIT. It's unrelated business income tax. So depending on how you're structuring that short-term rental, you will be subject to this tax. So just take that in consideration, but that does not mean you can't still make great profit off that investment. Fix and flips. Okay, so a few things with fix and flips. You need to decide, like I said, it's got to be a third party that's coming in to do the work. So find a good contractor, figure out what it's going to look like, figure out what the budget is, figure out if you do need financing. Maybe you can negotiate with the contractor, like, hey, I'm planning, once the flip's done, I'm going to make this much money. Maybe you can give them a percentage or points on the property, and they'll do the work for you at a discounted price. I've seen clients do that, and you could do the same thing in an IRA. The IRA is the owner, not you personally, but doesn't mean you can't negotiate the terms of what that deal looks like on behalf of the IRA, because it is your IRA. And then will you be able to find a buyer? What's, the most you need to accept? What's the profit look like? And if you need to use financing, same thing, only a non recourse loan would qualify. Typically, with non recourse lenders, what I've seen is they require you to have 30 to 50% loan to value. So you do have, your IRA has to have, skin in the game, of course. But I've seen people do fix and flips without any financing. So if you find that right deal and you think it's worth it, then, go for it. All the same rules apply. So there are prohibited transactions. Like I said, specifically, you can't live there, can't rent it, neither can any disqualified parties or put any sweat equity. Now, how would UBIT or UDFI fit into this? Well, if you do multiple fix and flips, then that would be perceived as a business. So then UBIT would kick in. If you are using financing, then the UDFI tax would kick in. So that would kick in fix and flips most of the time. If you are not using financing, you're just doing maybe one fix and flip just to get like a jump start on your IRA, then that wouldn't be perceived as a business. But if you're doing multiple fix and flips, then it would be perceived as a business. And that would be up to you to defend, that in front of the IRS if, they thought you weren't paying that UBIT tax, but you'll know, trust me. You want to do what's in the best interest for your IRA, of course, but you also want to keep it within the parameters. And if you have to pay that tax, you have to pay that tax. That's just how it works. But same thing, it doesn't mean you can't make great profit off that investment opportunity. Syndications is more of a passive investment where you're just putting your money into somebody else's deal. They're doing all the work. They deal with the tenants. They're the landlord. They deal with the toilets. You just put your money in there, let it work, and then you get your returns that come in back to the IRA. So it depends on you. It depends on your investing style. You want to ask questions and do your due diligence and figure out if this is the way you want to invest your money. Do you want to be an active investor or a passive investor? All right. So all the same rules apply. You can't do any deals with any disqualified parties. So if they are the syndicator or sponsor, probably can't invest your IRA with them. Let's see. Land is another thing I've seen clients do. I've seen some cool things with land. Land you can buy at a pretty discounted price in most places. And I've seen clients buy land and just hold the land. The only thing with land is there's no cash flow coming in. So you might have to hold it for a while and take a couple hits, pay your self-directed IRA custodian fees. With a credit card, maybe do that. Or if you have enough money in the IRA, let the IRA pay it. I had one client that likes to buy a plot of land, but he likes to find land where it's in the middle between two neighbors. And then what he does is gets them to outbid each other because who doesn't want to add more land to their property? And he tries to get them to outbid each other, and that's how he makes his profit. I have another client that likes to buy land, and he will buy it in areas of growing cities where he thinks there might be highway exits, and then hopes that a Walmart or a Publix or a gas station or somebody, commercial type property will be built there, or at least approach him to try to take that land off his hands. And that's how he makes his profit. So there's a lot of creative things with land. But remember, there's no cash flow. If you want to develop on the land, same thing. You can't do it yourself or any companies you own or any disqualified parties. It's got to be a third party that does the work. They have to, you're going to have to survey the land, get the permits, and then your IRA is responsible for the price of developing on that property. Third-party contractor, of course, is going to do the work. And then you can sell that land, with the property on there afterwards, and all that profit goes back to the IRA. You can do financing with land. Same thing. You normally, if you're using a non-recourse loan, you have to have some skin in the game. So you could shop lenders. We do have a list of non-recourse lenders. So if you need that list, just reach out to us. We're happy to share that with you. And it's up to you to, find that lender and make sure it's a non-recourse loan, because that is the only type of loan you can use with any self-directed IRA. Same with the solo 401k plans. And that's it. So if you have questions, you can always reach out. Go ahead and start typing those questions in. Last thing I want to cover are joint ventures. JVs are pretty common in IRAs, and you can JV with your cash and your IRA. You can JV with disqualified parties, but you have to keep it pro rata. So I'm going to give you a pretty easy example here. I want to buy a house. I want to keep it as a rental property. Don't have enough money. So I went to my spouse, said, hey, let's go 50-50 on this property. I'm using my IRA. You're using your cash. It's 50-50. This house needs a new roof. Well, my IRA needs to pay for 50% of that expense, and my spouse, their cash needs to pay for 50% of that expense. And we can't commingle those funds. And even if I had more money in my IRA, I can't cover 100% of that IRA. It's got to stay pro rata. And then we sell the property, or we have renters in there, and everything's distributed 50-50, or however you structure that joint venture. So you can do joint ventures in the IRA, but you have to be very, very careful not to cross those lines of doing any transactions between any disqualified parties. What I would suggest, if you are doing a joint venture, keep disqualified parties completely out of it. That way it does not open the opportunity up for any errors or mistakes along the way. Find a third party person that you can JV with. So yeah, JVs are pretty cool. There's a lot of potential to make some good money doing JVs if you don't have enough money in your IRA. Rather than taking out a non-recourse loan, maybe find someone to partner on the deal with you instead. That will save you from paying that UDFI tax. All right, so these are the speakers we have lined up for the rest of the series. So on January 11th at 1 p.m., we are bringing in Matthew Bowles, who I'm very familiar with. Great guy. He's been in the real estate industry for a very long time. He's always gotten great reviews from his workshops with us. And he was one of our speakers at our last investor retreat we had in January last year. This is a cool one too. Whitney Elkins Hutton is going to be speaking on car washes and how that fits into the real estate investing. You're not investing in the business, but in the real estate. So I'm looking forward to learning some from her, and I will be at a conference with her pretty soon. She's one of the headline speakers at the Best Ever conference coming up in March. Alex Quesada, another mutual friend of a friend, and he does self-storage. He's pretty well known here in the Central Florida area. He'll be talking about how they acquired 8 self-storage facilities within 2 years. And if you've seen any of our past workshops on self-storage, that is a pretty, what they call recession-proof type of investment. So I want to hear what he has to say for sure. Mark Ospek, we met at Jack's REIA in Jacksonville, and they invest in distressed real estate, which is definitely a hot market right now because of the way the interest rates are looking. So I'm real excited about his presentation February 1st. And then last but not least will be Dawn Pitts. And she's talking about why trust deeds should be held in your IRA, which sounds pretty interesting. I don't know a whole lot about trust deeds myself, but I'm interested in learning more. So she's a great resource for that. And you can always come back for the panel interview. If you missed any of those, you can rewatch them on our YouTube page. You scan those QR codes, you can submit questions for the panel. If you need to register for the workshop, scan that other QR code, the larger one, and that'll get you registered for the rest of the series. So let me see if any questions came in before we wrap up for the day. Anything live? Okay, I don't see any questions, so we're going to go and wrap it up. But remember, you can always submit questions by scanning that QR code. It'll go to the panel, the panelists, and then we can cover them there. You can even ask myself questions there as well. All right, thanks everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday at 1 p.m.